Right, good evening, everybody. I apologise, this is taking a bit longer than I hoped, and I've had to do it in two parts because I just can't download the video and convert it to be able to play it on here and record it for you. But anyway, if you haven't already, go watch part one, the video of me doing the walk round, where I'll take you through the things you should usually look for when you're in a property, to help you price up the refurb. So, as you can probably see, this picture of the property that I went to see today. It's a three-bed mid-terrace in a place called Eastham on the Wirral, direct to vendor. So, I'll summarise what I did on the video. So I walked around the property and I'll tell you some of the things I saw upstairs, because I only did the video upstairs, as I said, because the vendor who was in the property didn't want to be filmed. So I've obviously got to respect them, and I couldn't ask them to leave the house that they were in while I did the video. Anyway, so I was upstairs, started upstairs, and you were live with me as soon as I'd walked in the property, pretty much. So you could see it's pretty dated. From knocking on all the walls, the plaster seemed in relatively good condition. I didn't hear any hollow points in the walls, but as I mentioned, looking at the state of the sockets, the quantity of them, and the age, you can always tell if there's a lot of single sockets and they're quite low to the skirting board. Then the reality is that they're old-fashioned and they'll need changing. And then you validate that by looking at the electrical board, the consumer unit, to see how old that looks. So the reality is you're probably going to have to allow to replaster, because there's going to be chasing out to be done, which means you're going to have to plaster over the top. And then what will happen is some of the plaster may fall off when you strip the wallpaper, or when you're channeling out for the new wires because of the vibration. And then best case scenario, you might get away with just over skimming the existing walls. But if you make provision for the worst case happening, or not really the worst case, but the most likely case happening. And then if you get a chance to save some money later on, then great. But you don't want to under provision your budget. That's the key thing. So then you'll see as well from the walk around upstairs, the floorboards are in good condition. The internal doors needed changing. If you're going to replaster walls, you're probably going to have to take the skirting boards off and put new ones on, so you have to make some allowance for that. The doors were a bit funny because they had a top light on them, so your choice is you leave the top light in situ and just replace the doors, or you replace the whole unit and it costs you a bit more because you'll have to maybe get a bespoke door done. It's kind of up to you and the aesthetic you want in the property. For what the purposes of what we're doing, we're just going to assume we're going to replace the doors, leave the top lights in situ to keep more light in the house. You'll also notice that I went into the bathroom, and the bathroom's in relatively good condition. It's been fitted out as a wet room for obviously the old lady that lived there, who has unfortunately passed away. And it's a good size, so you have to strip the whole bathroom out and put a new bathroom in, a family bathroom, into the house, because it's a family house, 3 beds. Bedrooms are all relatively good sizes. There's a lot of storage as well, you've probably seen on the video. So anyway, I think that's pretty much everything that I covered. Some of the ceilings looked a bit dodgy, so you might have to make some allowance for that. But the reality is, if you're going to be replastering, you're going to be replastering, so you might as well just sort everything out in one hit, and we'll do that in the budget builder. So as I said, I obviously didn't take a video downstairs, but I have took photos, so we'll go through that. But one thing I forgot to mention then is the radiators. We looked at the radiators and they looked relatively modern, so they're good enough to stay. You don't necessarily need to replace them, but then I'll show you what the boiler looked like on a picture from downstairs. And the last thing, a note from upstairs, is it looked like someone had shot the window, which is odd, or throw a stone at it maybe. So we just need to make an allowance for replacing that. So let's see. So we've got the outside of the property. You can see here something else we probably need to make an allowance for is this little felt roof here. Looks a bit tatty. It's not really the end of the world because it doesn't go anywhere. Even if it leaks through there, what's it going to do? Not much. But you might want to replace that just for the aesthetics of the house. Another good thing to look at while we're out here is look at the fascias. Oh, sorry, that's not the fascia. That's the fascia and the soffit. you'll see that they're modern and plastic, which is good. What you want to look for is, if you're looking next door here, I think it is, these look like potentially they could be ACM, asbestos containing material. So if you notice some like that, or like on the other side at the properties you're looking at, could potentially be asbestos, but you'll pick that up on your asbestos survey that you do. Anyway, so let's go inside and have a look. As I said, what's going on here? As I said, so there's the boiler. So it's not too old. It's probably 15 years old, maybe a bit less. The reality is, though, you'd probably want to change that, just for future maintenance. So we'll have to make some provision for changing that, and we'll assume we're keeping the existing rats. Then the next picture we've got is of the kitchen. I took this strategically because the vendor was sat in there. You can see that the kitchen's obviously dated and needs updating. One thing to look for is when you see a sink like this, old style sink, open up under here and look underneath, and I'll show you why in a minute. I have got a photo of it, I hope. If not, I'll explain to you. So then this is the living room. This leads out. This is actually the back garden. There's a road here though, so some people have converted this into a driveway if you wanted to do that, but let's not worry about that too much. It's in decent condition. It just needs a cosmetic overhaul and obviously the rewire. Downstairs toilet, always a good thing. So we're going to have to allow to do the downstairs toilet too, so make some allowance for that. This is the back living room, as it were, so a dining room or whatever it might want to be. Just another room. It's got a radiator in. It's a bit unsightly with the pipes all on show, but we can sort that when the electrics are getting done. We'll just put an extra chase in and sink the pipes into the wall to tidy it up, make it look a bit nicer. So as I said, look at the electricity board. So you can see this is an old style electricity board. So it needs a rewire. You can also tell if you look at the cable colours of being red and black, because modern cables are blue and brown. It has got some earth in here, you can see, but that earthing will probably need to be upgraded, but that'll all get sorted as part of the rewire. Then you can see out here, the reason I've took this photo is because of these floor tiles. These could potentially be ACM, asbestos containing material. Because that's what they used to do, is put asbestos backing down on the tiles. So potentially that's another area of asbestos. But as I said, this will all get picked up on the asbestos survey. I didn't take a photo of it, so I'll go back to the kitchen and show you. So underneath a sink like this, what you want to do is take the drawers out and look underneath. And if there's a black pad on there, then that's probably ACM as well, asbestos containing material. It's quite common on older type sinks. In fact, there was actually a pad on this one, there's a pad on this, and there was a pad under the drainer too, so 3 pads. And quite funnily, I told the vendor that there was asbestos in there, and I took this drawer out and she didn't believe me, and I showed her the drawer, and there's actually bits of asbestos in the drawer where the pads fell off and fell into the drawer. So it's funny really, because if it is asbestos, you might have had your knives and forks in there, and then what's happening is asbestos containing materials falling onto your knives and forks, albeit it's in a black bitumen pad, so it's not really high risk. It's just funny. And then she proceeded to tell me about a story about my father dying of mesothelioma, which is an asbestos it's caused by asbestos. But anyway, I digress. So that's a view of the property. As I said, underneath these floor tiles, there could potentially be more asbestos tiles too. So we need to make allowance for that. So the reality is this is a pretty big refurb. It's the whole property apart from there didn't seem to be any damp. So the damp doesn't need doing, and the windows are okay apart from that one pane that's been shot. Weird, and because it's not an alright area. And then finally, the roof was okay. I didn't really take any photos of the roof, but the roof was all right. I mean, it probably could have done with being replaced at some point in the future, but it's in a terrace, and then it becomes complicated because you've got to do the joints in between next door. So they were all okay. There was no missing tiles, so I'd just leave it. Right, okay, so there's the photos done. So what I'll do is, for those of you who came on the webinar that I did, you will have seen this before. So this is the viewing checklist. So what I'll do is I'll use the viewing checklist to estimate our refurb costs, because that's, it's good to use the tools that you've got. So this is our template. It's pretty simple by BRR template for stacking deals. This is how we do it. So we'll go through it. The refurbs all listed out, and with some fees you can add on at the bottom, so it's easy. We'll do this first before I even delve into how we do the stack the deal itself. So asbestos survey, we definitely need one of those done, because we've identified areas potentially of ACM, asbestos containing material. So 500 quid for a survey, we'll put the 500 quid in. So floor plans, this is important, especially if you're rejigging the internal layout of a house, or if you're doing a rewire, because you need to put wherever your sockets are going. So the reality is we'd probably get 2 of them done. One for the layout of the house, how it's going to be for like the bathroom and the kitchen, and then a second one for the rewiring. So we'll put £100 in there for 2 of them. I know this seems relatively small, but you should really allow for it, because if you need it done, you need it done. And then what we'll do is down here, I'll jump down, we'll do design. What we're going to do is we're going to put 0% in here, because that's we'll just use the floor plans. We're not going to get any actual design done. And I've just realised I probably haven't put these as a percentage. So let's just do that. Strip out, I mean, it's a limited strip out really. The kitchen's going to have to come out, the bathroom's going to have to come out. You have to strip some wallpaper. Most of the flooring's already out, so there's going to be a bit of flooring. It's going to be 2 or 3 days work for a couple of labourers, plus maybe a skip. So if we said 3 days for 2 people, that's £600, plus a skip at £250, that's £850. So we'll put £850 in for the strip out. Damp, there was no damp, so we're going to put 0. Underpinning, there was no signs of structural movement. There probably wouldn't be in a house built in the late 60s in a terrace. They'll be solid. So nothing for that. Asbestos removal is a bit of a difficult one to price. There's quite a wide range on the viewing checklist for asbestos removal, 500 quid to £5,000, and there is a good reason for that. It depends if the material is notifiable or not, and it's only notifiable if the material has been used as an insulator on a hot pipe, I think it is, or on hot pipes. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's what I'm led to believe. So stuff like asbestos floor tiles, sink pads, they aren't notifiable, so it's much cheaper to dispose of them. They just need to be double bagged, basically sealed, and then disposed of to a licensed asbestos facility. So I would guess for what we've seen in there, it's going to be relatively limited, so we'll make an allowance of £1,000 for getting rid of those. I think maybe we might be able to get that done for a little bit less than that, but let's allow 1,000 just in case under the kitchen floor is all asbestos floor tiles too. Structural repairs, there didn't seem to be any structural repairs that were needed, so we'll get rid of that. The external doors were all okay. The front and back door seemed okay and relatively new, so we wouldn't allow to replace them, because it wouldn't be viable for a project like this where we're doing buy, refurbish, refinance. Internal doors, they all needed replacing, and there was a fair few of them. So we've got 3 bedrooms upstairs plus a bathroom, so that's 4 doors upstairs, plus there are a couple of cupboards too, so let's say 6 upstairs. Then we've got 2 living rooms downstairs, a downstairs toilet, a kitchen, so that's another 4, and then there was 2 cupboards downstairs too, so that takes us to 12 doors in total, which is quite a lot. On the viewing checklist, we say 150 to 250 each fitted. So if we go slap bang in the middle at £200 a door, you can see this is added up, because at 12 doors, that's £2,400 for internal doors. Rewiring, it's 3-bed property, so add 3k is probably relatively realistic for a rewire there. You have to remember these prices are all net prices, so not including VAT. So if you're using VAT registered tradesmen, you're going to have to add the VAT on top of this too. Heating system replacement. I don't think we need to replace the whole system, but we probably need a new boiler. So let's allow 1,500 for the new boiler. The kitchen, it's a 3-bed, so we'll allow 3k. That's realistic for a kitchen and some small appliances. The bathroom, we need to allow 2,000 because it's a bigger bathroom. Plastering, we need to replaster the whole house, so let's allow for the full replaster at 3k. Floor finishes, 2k. Wall finishes, another 2k. Roof replacement, nothing. New walls, nothing. Is there anything else we've missed? Yes, there is. We said we need to replace a new window pane. So, window pane, a couple of £100, £250. Ground floor WC. That needs replacing and tidying up, so probably say £500 for that because we only really need a toilet and a sink and it's tarting up a little bit. And then the last thing we need to add on is that felt roof at the front. So felt roof at the front, that's probably going to be another £500. So we're looking at 22.5k refurb on this, which I don't think is that unrealistic. I mean, when I originally seen the pictures of it and there was only a couple, I'd budgeted in my mind about 25, and if it works at 25, then it's probably a goer. Okay, so the next one's project management fee. So if you're doing this as a packaged investment for somebody, you want to be adding on your PM fee, whatever that may be. So let's do it. Let's add in 10% for your PM fee. Then what I was talking about in the training, you've got contingency, so you need to add on some estimating uncertainty and some risk. So based on the type of methods we use in here, we haven't gone completely top down. So you don't want to be allowing 17% contingency on these numbers because it's probably a little bit unrealistic. But you probably need somewhere in the region of, we talk about this being an intermediate estimating method potentially, maybe a little bit less than that. So I think 10% EU estimating uncertainty is probably realistic. And then do we need to allow a little bit of risk? Potentially we do. So we're getting up to 30k on this refurb now. Yeah, we're getting up to 30k on this refurb now. So that's probably not unrealistic in terms of a solid budget plus a project management fee for doing a property like this. Okay, so we're over here now in our BRR calculator. Like I've said before, you might have heard me say, it's good to keep these things very simple. There's no need to overcomplicate them because it's really unnecessary. So the purchase price, and we're going to assume it's a cash purchase, the vendor's asking for 95, and to be honest, I don't think the property's really worth 95. So I'd expect we're going to get some reduction, but they did tell me of something which means they need as close to 95 as possible. So the reality is, if we're going to offer anything, we need to create a win-win for everyone. We're not here to rip people off. So let's put 90 in there just to see where we come out at. So again, if you're sourcing this onto somebody, you want to add in your sourcing fee. You got stamp duty being calculated at 3% on top of that because we're assuming the person that's going to buy this off us is going to be buying it in the limited company and not in the personal name. So, you're going to have to pay additional stamp duty on top. A broker fee, so this is usually worked off your revaluation. Target rent, so we'll look at that. I've done a little bit of research, so I'm not sat here and you'll be looking at me searching on the internet. We've got here sort of the average rentals for 3-bed terraces in that area, 650 to 675. You probably might achieve 700 at a push, but let's be, not conservative but realistic, and let's go in at 675. 675 for this property. So then target revaluation, this is a bit of a difficult one, especially in the current times. So what we'll do is just, because we're only really stacking the deal to get ourselves in the position where to make an offer. So does it pass the giggle test? And by the giggle test, I mean when you put the numbers in, does it make you laugh? It's that bad. If it doesn't, then it passes and it might make it through to the next stage. So if we look in the area, the average overall price 140k there or thereabouts over the last year. Terrace prices were down 36% on the 2017 peak at 214k. I think some data's throwing that out there because you'd never be paying 215 grand for a house like this. Well, I think we know why now, because there's some new build houses that's probably throwing that all out. So let's ignore that one out of our data set. So we've got one that's sold here, 116. We've got one that's sold there, 120, 118. Oh, there's one at 140. So we could potentially be getting up there. Another one at 110. And that's enough data for me to make an approximation. I mean, if you were a little bit optimistic, you might want to bang 140 in there. That's probably a bit unrealistic though. If you got it revalued or trying to sell it right at this minute in time, you might get that because house prices where I am seem to have gone a little bit crazy. But you're probably better putting in a conservative 120, maybe 125. So let's go a little bit brave and put 125 and see where we come out. So I mean at 125, based on how much we're putting in, we're going to leave 30 grand in this property, which is a little bit, that's a lot that we're leaving in the house. We've got target rent at 675, a management fee at 12%, so that's 10 plus VAT. Insurance 20 quid a month, and mortgage interest around 3% because we're leveraging at 75%. If we wanted to leverage at 80%, which is a little bit dicey, I wouldn't be doing that. You probably want to bang your mortgage interest up to 3.5%, maybe 4%. But this is how we usually stack ours, because I know you can get a 75% LTV mortgage at 2.99%, or you could 3 or 4 months ago when I last tried. So that's where we stack them usually. So I mean, based on what our investors want, I haven't even put our sourcing fee in here. If I was to put a sourcing fee in, the return on capital employed just doesn't really make it a deal for us. It's close, and I mean, I think there's some negotiations to be had with the asking price. I think maybe if you got it down to 75, which isn't unrealistic, it becomes a much more attractive deal. You can do a goal seek analysis in Excel to be able to find out what this number should be to get you whatever your magical return on capital employed is, but I'm not going to show you how to do that because this isn't an Excel lesson. I wouldn't go. The vendor had told me she'd had an offer of someone off 70, which she told them politely no. Well, it was actually unpolitely what she'd said to them, but anyway. So I mean, I could go in at 75, but I wouldn't want to insult her. What I might do is go back to her and see if we can find some common ground and explain to her that I can't go any higher than whatever the figure may be to make it work. Let's see how it looks at 80, not 800 grand. One too many zeros, you can tell it's getting a bit late. So it just about works at 80k. I mean, if we managed to get 700 for the target rent, then it definitely, you were just getting there at 700 for the target rent. So we'd have to make it really nice and a purchase price at 80. But again, that doesn't take into account a sourcing fee either. So that's how we stack deals. I hope you found this useful. Let me know if you haven't, but I really do hope you have. I've got no idea how to stop this video now. Let me just save this because this is actually a deal for us. I've got to follow up with this deal, because it's one potentially that we're interested in, but only if we can make the deal work. I mean, we might be able to go back through and look at some of the refurbishment costs. I'm pretty confident in my estimating, and that what I would do is, once I've made an allowance for something, so I've got 22 grand cost here to deliver the works that we've looked at and estimated is that basically I can make cost the main priority on the project and then be able to what you'd call buy the job for the amount of money we've got and deliver it. So there might be some negotiations be had there. I don't know what's going on here. We get rid of that bad calculation. So maybe we could reduce the risk money on the basis that we're including for pretty much everything, and we think we could probably deliver it for that. But this is a balance now of risk and reward of where we go, because it is pretty tight anyway as a deal, and we're leaving a fair chunk of cash in the house at a reval at 125. So that's how we stack a deal. As I said, I hope you found it useful. I apologise. It's taken me so long to get it on. I don't know what's been going on today with I've been trying to convert the video over. Right. See you later, guys. I'll do another one. So I did view a second house today on the Woodchurch, which is somewhere where I grew up. So I will do a video on that as well tomorrow. I just need to try and figure out. I do actually need to have that video on my computer to be able to show you properly. All right, guys. See you later.